Hello and welcome back to another episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life, as studies routinely show that those who read their Bibles regularly have significantly lower symptoms of depression, anxiety, and anger, whilst also having higher feelings of forgiveness, compassion, and a sense of purpose in their lives. So if you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. And today we're going to be going through Leviticus chapter 14, which is actually going to give the public cleansing rituals for two kinds of impurity, which were previously described in Leviticus 13. Number one, the person who has been declared clean after tazarat, which is a skin disease, which is often translated as a leprosy. And number two, a house that has shown signs of mildew or mould, which is a type of plague in plaster or stone. And both rites are going to be elaborate, they're going to be public, they're going to have a lot of symbolism that we're going to come back to. They are going to involve purification with water, blood, and oil, substitution through some sacrifices, as well as the utilization of certain cleansing agents such as cedar, hyssop, crimson yarn, as well as some physical renewal such as shaving and replastering. So all of this is going to be important in this chapter. So without further ado, I'm going to read from verses 1 to 7. We're going to go through some ritual elements for the cleansed person, and then verses 8 to 9, shaving, washing, temporary restriction, and the 7-day interval. So verse 1, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This shall be the rule for the person with a defiling skin disease at the time of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest shall go out of the camp, the priest shall make an examination. If the disease is healed in the defiled person, the priest shall command that 2 living clean birds and cedar wood, and crimson yarn and hyssop be brought for the one who is to be cleansed. The priest shall command that one of the birds be slaughtered over fresh water in a clay vessel. He shall take the living bird with the cedar wood, and the crimson yarn and the hyssop, and dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was slaughtered over the fresh water. He shall sprinkle it 7 times upon the one who is to be cleansed of the defiling disease. Then he shall pronounce him clean, and he shall let the living bird go out into the open. The one who is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and bathe himself in water, and he shall be clean. After that he shall come into the camp, but shall live outside his tent 7 days. On the 7th day he shall shave all of his hair off his head, his beard, his eyebrows, he shall shave all his hair. Then he shall wash his clothes, and bathe his body in water, and he shall be clean. In verses 10 to 32, we're going to go over the day 8 offerings and priestly rites, the sacrifices, oils, portions for the priest. Verses 33 to 53 is going to be cleansing or a condemnation of a house, that is, inspection, scraping, replastering, and possibly demolishing the house. So, let's go through it. Verse 10, on the 8th day he shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, 1 ewe lamb in its first year without blemish, and a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of choice flour mixed with oil, and 1 log of oil. Verse 11, the priest who cleanses shall set the person to be cleansed along with these things before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Verse 12, the priest shall take 1 of the lambs and offer it as a guilt offering along with the log of oil, and raise them as an elevation offering before the Lord. He shall slaughter the lamb in the place where the purification offering and the burnt offering are slaughtered in the holy place. For the guilt offering, like the purification offering, belongs to the Lord, it is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. Verse 15, the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his left hand, and dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and sprinkle some oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. Some of the oil that remains in his hand the priest shall put on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot, on top of the blood of the guilt offering. Verse 18, the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall put on the head of the one to be cleansed. Then the priest shall make atonement on his behalf before the Lord. The priest shall offer the purification offering, to make atonement for the one to be cleansed from his uncleanness. Afterward he shall slaughter the burnt offering, and the priest shall offer the burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar. Thus the priest shall make atonement on his behalf, and he shall be clean. Verse 21, but if he is poor and cannot afford so much, he shall take one male lamb for a guilt offering, to be elevated, to make atonement on his behalf, and 1/10 of an ephah of choice flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil. Also 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, such as he can afford, one for a purification offering, and the other for a burnt offering. On the 8th day he shall bring them for his cleansing to the priest, to the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the guilt offering, and the log of oil, and the priest shall raise them as an elevation offering before the Lord. The priest shall slaughter the lamb of the guilt offering, and shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The priest shall pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is left in his left hand 7 times before the Lord. The priest shall put some of the oil that is in his hand on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand and the big toe of the right foot, where the blood of the guilt offering was placed. Verse 29, the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hands he shall put on the head of the one to be cleansed, to make atonement on his behalf before the Lord, and he shall offer of the turtle doves or pigeons, such as he can afford, one for a purification offering, and the other for a burnt offering, along with a grain offering, and the priest shall make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the one being cleansed. This is the rule for the one who has a defiling skin disease, who cannot afford the offerings for his cleansing. Verse 33, then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I will give for you for a possession, and I put a defiling disease in a house in the land of your possession, the owner of the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, there seems to be a sort of disease in my house. The priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest goes in to examine the disease, or all that is in the house will become unclean. And afterward the priest shall go in to inspect the house. He shall examine the disease. If the disease is in the walls of the house, with greenish or reddish spots, and if it appears to be deeper than the surface, the priest shall go outside to the door of the house and shut up the house for 7 days. The priest shall come again on the 7th day and make an inspection. If the disease has spread in the walls of the house, the priest shall command that the stones in which the disease appears be taken out and thrown into an unclean place outside the city. You shall have the inside of the house scraped thoroughly, and the plaster that is scraped off shall be dumped in an unclean place outside the city. They shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and take other plaster and plaster the house. Verse 43. If the disease breaks out again in the house after he has taken out the stones and scraped the house and plastered it, the priest shall go and make inspection. If the disease has spread in the house, it is spreading defiling disease in the house. It is unclean. He shall have the house torn down, its stones and timber, and all the plaster of the house, and taken outside the city to an unclean place. Verse 46, all who enter the house while it is shut up shall be unclean until the evening, and all who sleep in the house shall wash their clothes, and all who eat in the house shall wash their clothes. If the priest comes and makes an inspection, and the disease has not spread in the house after the house was plastered, the priest shall pronounce the house clean. The disease is healed. For the cleansing of the house he shall take 2 birds, with cedar wood and crimson yarn and hyssop, and shall slaughter one of the birds over fresh water in a clay vessel, and shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the crimson yarn, along with the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slaughtered bird, and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. Thus he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the fresh water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and hyssop and crimson yarn. Verse 53, and he shall let the living bird go out of the city into the open field. So he shall make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the rule for any defiling disease, for an itch, for defiling diseases in clothing and houses, and for a swelling or an eruption or a spot, to determine when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the rule for defiling diseases. Alright, now it's time for some deep biblical unlocks. I just want to put a little note here. The chapter uses repeated symbolic items to clean birds, cedar wood, crimson yarn, hyssop, running water, sacrificial animals, shaving and washing. And each one of these elements carries theological weight. So the first thing is, in verses 1 to 9, we saw the cleansed person, right? The ritual of reintegration. How does a person come back in to the community after they have been uncleaned or deemed unclean? So in verses 1 to 9, we see the immediate rite. The priest prescribes 2 clean birds, right? 2 clean live birds, a cedar, a crimson yarn, and hyssop. 1 bird is killed over living water, and some of its blood and the running water are mixed. The living bird, the cedar, hyssop, and crimson are dipped in that mixture and used to sprinkle the person 7 times. Then the living bird is released into the open field. The cleansed person shaves off all their hair, washes their clothes, and bathes, and remains outside his tent 7 days. So, what does this all mean? 2 birds is a justice and mercy motif here. One of them dies and one of them lives, and the living bird's release symbolizes removal of guilt and restoration to life. The cedar, what does the cedar mean? The cedar represents durability. It's removal of decay, because cedar wood actually resists rot. The hyssop, what does the hyssop mean? It's humility. It allows us to reach hard to reach places, and it's used elsewhere for cleaning, such as in Exodus chapter 12 and Psalm chapter 51. Crimson yarn, that's a visible sign of identification and the scarlet of life and blood. The running water plus the blood, we have the life and the substitution combined. The blood marks life and the water cleanses, so we have the cleansing of one's life right in that mixture. Shaving and washing, they are outside or outward signs that the inner cleansing has effects on the body and one's identity. Okay, in verses 10 to 32, we saw the 8th day rite. That is to say, the 8th day, so after the 7 days of being outside the tent, on the 8th day, the cleansed person presents specified offerings to the priest. So sacrifices a grain offering and oil. The priest takes some oil, mixes it with the blood from the sacrifice, and uses it in ritual gestures. That is sprinkling, putting on the right ear, the right thumb, and the right big toe, and pouring oil on the cleansed person's head. And the remainder of the offerings, the portions, are handled according to the law. Some of it is burnt, some of it is eaten by the priest in the holy place. After the ritual, the priest declares the person clean and they are allowed to be readmitted. So, the gestures, the ear, hand, and foot, they symbolically reconsecrated hearing, doing, and walking. The same triad occurred in the priestly ordination that happened in Leviticus chapter 8. That is, you need to hear with holiness, do with holiness, and walk with holiness. That's why the blood is placed on the ear, hand, and foot. Oil is a visual sign of God's presence and healing, and the 8th day marks full re-entry into covenant life. And similar procedures were provided for diseases or mould present in houses. So Leviticus 14 actually gives a clear program for not pretending that hidden contamination is God. Lust spreads silently. It hides in objects and routines and can require decisive removal and public restoration. The law sequence: you diagnose, you quarantine and repair, you ritually cleansed, you reintegrate. It maps perfectly with modern recovery. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help you keep up your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. I upload daily, so if you don't want to miss tomorrow's episode, feel free to rate the show and follow. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And always remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.